Welcome to Andy Parsons' election huddle, week 3. So Labour launched their manifesto ahead of the Conservatives, and it was a manifesto of hope. A hope that the opinion polls were wrong and that Labour wouldn't remain 12 percentage points behind. After 3 years of total Conservative disarray, to be 12 percentage points behind in the polls takes talent. To have seen the largest government defeat in our entire history, 2 Conservative Prime Ministers resign and a government majority of minus 43. And yet, for the majority of the British public to be going, I think Labour would have done a worse job. During the first TV debate, Johnson versus Corbyn, the Conservative Party's official Twitter account was rebranded as Fact Check UK, something that was itself fact-checked by proper fact-checking organisations and was soon found to be bullshit. Conservative Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab defended the move, saying nobody gave a toss about social media, a claim which was then itself fact-checked and also found to be bullshit because he himself had spent 56 grand on Facebook ads. Perhaps even more surprising than his use of the word toss on breakfast television was his new styling of a Bobby Charlton comb-over, something that even Bobby Charlton doesn't do anymore. To then accuse Labour of taking us back to the 1970s seemed a stretch too far. It was the launch of the Labour manifesto at the last election which turned round Labour's fortunes, although they still lost. Arguably, what really turned round Labour's fortunes was the launch of the Conservative manifesto last time, and the so-called dementia tax, and a Prime Minister, Theresa May, who was keen to sell it to the public. By hiding. Have they gone yet? Although maybe the Labour Party could rebrand their Twitter feed as SureFact 2019 and say what a terrible policy the Conservatives' dementia tax policy is, without bothering to mention it's no longer a policy. Given the Conservatives' love of fact-checking, they might have started with Boris Johnson, because when Boris Johnson said during the TV debate that he thought the truth mattered, the audience pissed themselves laughing. A lot of pro-Johnson commentators have said that if nothing else, Boris Johnson would put a smile back on the face of the British public. But I don't think they were meaning when he was trying to be serious. I think more people would find Boris Johnson as Prime Minister amusing if it wasn't our country. A lot of the TV debate comments online about Labour seem to centre on Jeremy Corbyn's wonky glasses. Obviously, if you want to be taken seriously and to be trusted by voters, it's probably better if your glasses look like this rather than this. Although perhaps it was his way of trying to put a smile back on the face of the British public. Fact-checking Boris Johnson. Where'd you start? He said he'd rather be dead in a ditch than miss his October the 31st deadline. That there were no circumstances where he'd allow a border down the Irish Sea. That he'd lie down in front of the bulldozers before he allowed a third runway at Heathrow. And he continually says that Parliament is blocking Brexit, although Parliament recently approved Brexit and he himself has voted against Brexit twice. If the deal is oven ready, why did he recently put it into the oven and then take it out again straight away when it was far from cooked? He was also kicked out of his own house 3 times for lying by his wife. Obviously, it's not going to be easy for his current girlfriend to kick him out of his current house, but it'd be fun if she tried, wouldn't it? He comes out of 10 Downing Street to the Lex and makes a speech, then goes to go back in, and she's triple bolted it behind him. Boris Johnson also said the Conservatives would be providing 40 new hospitals, although when this was fact-checked, it turned out the Conservatives were in fact providing no new hospitals. They were going to provide, in the next 10 years, upgrades to 6 hospitals and give 34 others a small amount of money so they could draw up plans for an upgrade at some stage in the future. Given that Boris Johnson has said that one hospital costs 350 million, him giving 100 million and saying that's creating 34 hospitals means that in fact, rather than getting one hospital for 350 million, you could get 120 hospitals for 350 million. The sort of mathematics that deserves to go on the side of a bus. Perhaps he could lie in a ditch in front of a bus and a bulldozer whilst attempting to go down a zip wire into an oven. That, I think, would put a smile back on the face of the British public. And the thing is, we've got 3 more of these debates. I'm fine. Who knows? They might be different. Jeremy Corbyn might wear contacts, or he might say that he had suffered a sudden rush of adrenaline having seen a giant marrow in his allotment patch and he now has an inability to sweat. Or Boris Johnson might say that he couldn't possibly have been with Jennifer Arcuri on the night in question because he was in a Nando's in Basingstoke. See you next week.